It's nice to see a lot of people eating. It sort of makes me feel like you're happy and well fed. Let's see if I can get the mouse facing the right direction. What I was going to talk about with you today are some of the transportation technologies that are part of an overall group of technologies called intelligent transportation systems. This is an application of intelligent systems to trying to solve transportation problems. Transportation problems that are generally with regard to the safety of transportation and also dealing with congestion, and they usually use the term mobility for that part of it. These intelligent transportation systems have a whole bunch of different kinds of technologies, and these are just some of the ones that I wanted to show you. That is, the reason for doing the PowerPoint is to show you what some of these technologies look like, beginning with remote cameras, license plate readers, toll tag transponders. Anybody bring their fast track with them? No, but I bet you've got them on your cars. Vehicle black boxes, those are the event data recorders that have been in the news. And then dedicated short-range communications, which is the current research project I'm working on now. It's called Vehicle Infrastructure Integration, and I am a consultant to the Department of Transportation on the privacy aspects of that particular technology and all of these technologies in some way. The interesting thing from a sort of a technology and IP standpoint is that these technologies are mostly off-the-shelf open standards. Nothing is very sort of high-tech or very really proprietary. Where the value is in the aggregation of fairly simple, and you'll see what some of the component parts look like, fairly simple component parts into an intelligent system, and the parts of it that have real value are the data fusion, that is being able to collect and analyze and bring to bear data. That data fusion tends to generate relatively little in the way of patent litigation, copyright litigation, trade secrets, or trademarks. Although as some of these technologies begin to mature, there's going to be a fair amount of value out there, and my guess is that these technologies will that will have increasing amounts of intellectual property litigation. There, to my knowledge, is at least one piece of patent litigation that is going on with regard to the application of intelligent systems to traffic problems, and that patent plaintiff regularly gets thrown out of court, and his claims have never been successful, but he continues to bring them. And yet all kinds of intellectual property are involved in putting together some of the more sort of complicated projects. One of the projects that I'm going to be talking with you about is the 511 Traveler Information System that some of you probably use either on the web or on the telephone. I was involved in the privacy assessment. This is the privacy assessment report of the traffic surveillance system with regard to that 511 system. It's very interesting that in putting together the 511 Traveler Information System, which is a very complicated, multi-layered project, the developer of that project, Parsons Brinckerhoff, owns all of the intellectual property. The public agency which paid for the system, which is the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, felt that the intellectual property would be more valuable to the developer of the system, and the Metropolitan Transportation Commission was not capable or had the staff to be able to manage an intellectual property portfolio, and Parsons Brinckerhoff definitely is. So that's something about the sort of background of the technologies. These are traffic cameras. They're fairly sort of low-tech devices. They come in lots of different sort of forms and flavors. These traffic cameras you also see around transit hubs and light rail and Caltrans and the like, or Caltrain. These traffic cameras are looking remotely at what is going on the roads, and you see in the screen in the upper right, you'll see that it's watching the traffic as it goes by. How many of you have dialed into 511.org and watched the traffic cameras? Have you done that? I do it. I was talking with some of the people at the Metropolitan Transportation Commission as to why it's fascinating to watch traffic. And people will do this. Try it on your dog or your cat because they'll like it too. It's sort of very it's sort of interesting as to why we like to watch traffic. Most of the traffic cameras are fairly low resolution. They may be able to pick up license plates in some cases, but usually they only pick up the volume of traffic and whether there's an incident or that sort of thing. The remote camera will be looking at a road and sending it back to a traffic management center. You don't have a camera operator up there on the telephone pole looking at what the focus of that camera. And notice that very often traffic cameras are very hard to see. That one's way at the top of that telephone pole. And there are lots of traffic cameras around that are sometimes sort of difficult to see. But generally, the operator at the desk on the right is managing the camera on the left and can pan the camera, that is, follow the roadway within a certain radius, and can also zoom in on a particular spot or car. If there's an accident, zoom in on that to see if there appear to be injured people or fire or whatever. Fairly sort of common system. It is organized in one of the sort of more rudimentary systems where you have the camera taking the pictures of the traffic going by on the far right, sending it to a traffic management center. It is then computerized into such things as traffic speeds, traffic tie-ups, bottlenecks, construction, that sort of thing. This is what transportation uses as a very sort of basic application of very basic intelligent systems. But it doesn't give you the actual speeds that the cars are going, and it doesn't give you very much detail about them. My work on privacy, there isn't very much sort of privacy impact from these kinds of cameras. So long as they're operated properly, it's possible to use a pan-zoom camera to look into the windows of adjacent apartment buildings, and I spend a lot of time trying to make sure that the cameras are adjusted and are operated in ways that don't interfere with privacy. Just in case you were wondering where the traffic cameras are in this area, be sure to smile when you go by these places, because this is a map of our of our area. Pardon me, this is not the one that I was intending to use. I had another one. Sorry, this is Columbus, Ohio. As opposed to, I have one for the Silicon Valley. Sometimes these traffic cameras are connected up with something called license plate recognition. License plate recognition is a very hot topic in the technology for doing it because of the Brits are going to be starting to monitor all vehicles in Great Britain based on this license plate recognition. And I get lots of questions as to why we don't use this technology very often in the United States for monitoring traffic flows. The license plate recognition operates by beaming a light and a camera onto the license plate, recognizing it, and then letting the car through into the parking garage or whatever. You run into these license plate recognition systems once in a while. If you run into a roadblock or a checkpoint, you will find that they will use license plate recognition to see if any of the cars in the stream of traffic has warrants out or somehow is suspicious or needs to be looked in at further. But probably most commonly you find them at the entry to the airport parking garages, where the parking attendant that doesn't give you the ticket, it often is dispensed by a machine, but she'll tell you, we'll move up a little bit toward the arm that goes down. The reason that she does that is so that you'd be in range of the license plate cameras. There were such license plate cameras when the World Trade Center was bombed for the first time. There were such cameras in place, and that was one of the tools that they used to actually find the people that planted those bombs. And the Ramzi Youssef case in court came out of that application of these license plate recognition systems. Why aren't they used more frequently in the United States is the question that I get. The guy from BMW will call me up and in a wonderful German accent will ask me, well, why don't you use this in the United States? This high technology, right? The problem in the United States is at least twofold. One is that our license plates are of many different varieties. Every state is different, and then we have all these vanity plates, save the whales, save the otters, friends of the redwoods, whatever. We have all these vanity plates, and so they are not in standard configurations in the way that the white on black plates are. The European plates are the way they are to facilitate license plate recognition. It's good enough for a stopped car as it's waiting to go into a parking garage, but the technology finds it very hard to do automatic license plate recognition because of the variety of different kinds of license plates that are in any given place at any given time. The Bay Area has lots of people from Nevada, Texas, Massachusetts, you name it. The other has to do with the fact that U.S. license plates are susceptible to a spray that you can purchase on the internet that will make your plate invisible to license plate readers. Now, in some areas, they've talked about making the use of that spray that basically just sends the camera signal back with nothing behind it. They've talked about making that illegal, but the use of that is sufficient to make it really not a very good way of sort of looking at cars, much less sort of counting cars. A much better way of counting cars is the toll tag transponder. That's why I asked if you had your fast track pass on you. Those toll tag transponders are pretty much the same all over the country. We can, in our area, generally read tags from Oklahoma and Texas. I was once in the Traffic Management Center in Houston, Texas, watching the toll tags revolve around the ring road around, I don't know if you know Houston, but it has a big ring road around it. I was very concerned because those transponders were emitting the VIN number of each vehicle that was passing around Houston, Texas. That caused me a great deal of privacy concern. But I said, well, there's an odd one and there's another odd one. And those were toll tags from Kansas City. And so these tags tend to be readable, although they not necessarily are they can't necessarily charge to them literally all over the country. It's a very standard off-the-shelf technology. They're almost all made by a couple of different companies, and they're very, very old technology. They are not they're not very smart as technology goes. These transponders are passive until they are activated by a signal, give me your ID, and that signal that asks for the tag's ID will then be responded to by the tag with a 32-bit number. and that is those tag numbers are generally unique, globally unique, I don't know, but generally are unique enough to figure out sort of which toll tag transponder it is. The work that I have been doing over the last year or so in doing a privacy audit of the traffic watch system was looking at the application of transponder identifications as a way of calculating traffic speed in all the various sort of parts of the Bay Area. We have about, I guess now, 300 transponder readers along the sides of the road, not just at the toll facilities at the bridges, but all along the sides of the Bayshore Freeway, up and down the 880 corridor into Marin, completely ringing the Bay Area, which is pinging, as they like to say, activating the transponders, and then calculating speed between two antennas, two pingings, as to how far it takes to go from point A to point B. And what we audited was whether the system was operating anonymously, whether it was operating within the privacy guidelines that the Metropolitan Transportation System had given itself. This is a drawing which was done by a student who is part of our privacy team, Rich Seifert. Many of you probably know him, but it's a graphic representation of the car sending the signal back to the CIRIT reader. Our readers in California are called CIRIT 21 readers because the specifications for our toll tags and our toll tag readers are set in the administrative code. That is, they are required by law to meet Title 21 standards. They're not only just happenstance uniform, they're uniform and required to be uniform all over the state of California. And so that's why it's called a Title 21 reader, which is attached to an AirLink wireless modem that sends the signal up to the GPRS network to singular, and then from that frame relay network into the actual traffic watch system, which is the blue area up here. The traffic watch system is a set of computers that's, I think, double or triple redundant computers, and what we needed to do was to track the identification number on the toll tag through to see if it actually was made anonymous, whether there was danger that the toll tag number could be captured by somebody and used for nefarious purposes or to track the vehicle or whatever. And so as the system enters the computer program, which is Traffic Watch, there is a one of the first programs it encounters is an encryption, a fairly strong encryption process, and then only the encrypted IDs on segment data, 60 miles an hour here, 45 miles an hour there, is then processed into a picture of how fast the traffic flow is. The eventual output is to the data partners, and among the data partners are those variable message signs that say 17 minutes to Palo Alto, and you know it takes longer. Longer than that to get to Palo Alto. I'm always sort of saying, hey, you're about 2 steps behind where I want to be. But this is the system that we were looking at. And the interesting thing about this privacy assessment, we decided to call it an assessment as opposed to an audit because no one in any of these traffic management systems had ever been audited before. And so we called it an assessment so as to not spook the traffic engineers with whom we would be working. And it's, as I say, is recorded in this report. The standards for the audit were imposed by the organization itself. And in the process, we had to learn everything there was to learn about how the system operated. And for that, I needed some very good sort of expert advice, and we had our privacy assessment team, which was composed of Rich Seifert, a hardware engineer, and Vince Kogan, who is a computer programmer. You needed both expertise in order to understand this system because it required sort of complicated arrangements in both the hardware and in the software. And so that's the privacy assessment team with the operations manager for 511 traffic over in Oakland. And that's the way that privacy audits are done, insofar as some of you are interested in doing them yourself in the future. By the way, if you have any questions about some of these technologies and how they're put together, I don't want to go so fast that you don't have a chance to ask questions. I'm very happy to answer questions. I may go on too long in answering your question, but I'll try to be to the point. Yes?
So, but we were talking about the transponder network then that's monitoring the traffic flow. So, and the output to the signs. Is that, so is that the main, what are the other purposes of that?
I'm trying to make the slide go back. Just a second. What are the main functions of This is not going backwards, this is going forward for reasons that I'm not sure. That's where we wanted. Okay.
The main purposes for just this whole network, other than that, the traffic signs, what are the...
It appears on Channel 4. They're one of the traffic partners. It is used to put out bulletins. There are a whole layer of different bulletins that will talk about whether there's been an accident and the like. But mostly it is to find out how fast the traffic is moving and whether there are any obstructions to it. By the time these reports are made, no individual car is findable in the sort of summary data and the aggregated summary data that they're using. We were concerned that it could be used to follow an individual car, and there are really fairly significant safeguards against that happening. One of the things about this particular system is that they actually do manage, right at that green line, to anonymize data. One of the big issues with regard to personal information these days is whether you can anonymize data. And this is a system that does quite successfully anonymize data to the point that it is not capable of being sort of disaggregated or reconstructed in individual part. Yeah?
Just wanted to know, could this be altered by any chance to catch speeders? Since you said that individual cars could send out and then they could pass every once in a while.
That is what we were, a part of what we were concerned about. It could be, theoretically, not after the information has been processed into anonymous form, but before it is in anonymous form, it could be used to catch speeders or to find a particular car. One of the interesting things, I happened to be over at the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, and they had a request at that point from the local, I think it was the local district attorney, as to whether they could have access to the traffic watch system. And I said, well, answer him. And she said, well, what am I supposed to answer him? I said, well, you can give him what you have, which is anonymous data, but you don't have anything that would be very useful to the district attorney. They are interested in potential uses of this technology that would allow the targeting of particular cars and certainly the ticketing of cars. But this system has not been used for that purpose, and the Metropolitan Transportation Commission has said that if its mission is changed from just dealing with anonymous data, that they will shut down and destroy the system. So they're quite serious about not using it to give people tickets and the like. Yeah. Oh, that's a big question, because the Public Records Act applies to certain kinds of entities and not to others. It is a regional organization that is treated as a local government agency. It's not a county, it's not a city, it has a single purpose for it, which is transportation. And it is through the Metropolitan Transportation Commission that all of the federal transportation money comes into the Bay Area. So they are major sources of funding and therefore have a lot to say about kind of what happens with regard to how transportation is managed in this area. It's one of the most active purveyors in the country of intelligent transportation systems. And the traffic watch system is a very advanced system for calculating traffic speeds. There are other technologies that can be developed that are maybe not quite so benign. The other kind of technology that we've looked at is the event data recorder, EDR, the black boxes. There is legislation in 17 states that make the event data recorder information the property of the owner of the vehicle. Originally, the manufacturers felt that they had put this box in the car and that they owned the data. And so what we're getting in the EDR context, in the black box context, but in others as well, is big struggles over who owns the data about, say, a particular car. California was the first statute, the first state to enact such a statute, and it's been followed by, I think, 16 others at last count. This is a box that collects the last about 30 seconds of vehicle behavior right before the airbags are triggered, so that the vehicle data, brake status, headlights, a whole variety of sort of car operational data is captured once the airbags are triggered and kept that last 30 seconds so that the state of the operation of the car is maintained. It has a lot of applications in insurance claim cases and also occasionally in law enforcement. Not as much in law enforcement as we would have thought. These event data recorders are made by Votronics. That is, there are only one or two companies that even make these pieces of equipment. And as I say, there's relatively little litigation about them. But there are other technologies that are under development that are much more personalized. And from a privacy standpoint, that's the technologies that I'm working on now. I'm not so much working on the older anonymous technologies as I'm working on the ones that can personalize down to the driver of a car what is going on in a car. Telematics is simply the exchange of information between the car and some outside sort of infrastructure. OnStar is maybe the best known of these kinds of systems that give you some kind of concierge services and also a way of calling for help if you end up parking your SUV in the middle of a bunch of rattlesnakes, as I think one of the ads shows. Telematics depend primarily these days on the use of wireless telephones. And so they are part of the sort of technologies of commercial wireless communications and regulated pretty much as such. They are subject to law enforcement access under CALEA, the Communications Assistance for Law Enforcement Act, and they are, as I say, generally regulated as wireless communications. They are monitored by a monitoring agency such as OnStar. And what this shows is that you have a Votronics TCU, they're a control unit that is then collecting whether the vehicle is operating properly on its powertrain, whether the chassis has integrity, and a variety of other kinds of features. And that information is sent by wireless communication to an antenna and then processed through usually a live operator at one end of it. And these are fairly common on all cars. OnStar is free on all GM cars. BMW puts it on all of its cars. Most of the companies are sort of competing in that regard. The technology that I'm working on is a step different from that. Yeah?
I was just wondering about the GPS systems that you can buy separately from your vehicle and how they relate to privacy.
Well, they relate to privacy in that they tell you where you are, but they don't necessarily tell anyone else where you are unless you're hooked up to a telecommunications network that says the GPS reads that you are on Stevens Creek Boulevard at Saratoga.
Okay.
Without the outgoing communications link, it only tells you where you are.
And I assume that most of those current ones are only incoming, not outgoing.
Most of them are only incoming and not outgoing, like Magellan and those sorts of things. The trouble with them is that in order to stay current, you have to keep downloading additional information about roadways and the like that you might be traveling on. This is the sort of latest of the transportation technologies and is one that I am a consultant to the Department of Transportation on. I work on the privacy aspects of it. It uses a dedicated short-range communications spectrum in the 5.9 gigahertz range. That is, it has been allocated, the spectrum has been allocated by the FCC just for these transportation functions. And one of the issues that I deal with is keeping them within their FCC authorization, what they are actually authorized to do in terms of safety and mobility. These are relatively short range. We're talking 300 yards maybe. Not as short as Bluetooth, but not a wireless range at all. About 300 feet, about 3,000 feet. And what you have is a little radio, the onboard unit, built into the car, which communicates with what is called a roadside unit. It may be just an antenna sitting on a telephone pole. It could be a gantry. This shows a gantry form that is constantly collecting information about the car with regard to its speed, its velocity, its location in space, and whether the windshield wipers are on, a whole series of sort of environmental factors around the car. And this information is broadcast in the clear under this system. It is not encrypted as far as we are designing it right now, but it also does not identify which vehicle it is. Any vehicle is identifying itself and is sending what is called probe data. That's what the red data coming out of the car is to the roadside unit, and the roadside unit is broadcasting into the car other information such as there's a major traffic tie-up up ahead, and then the car will say to you, you will have a device in the car which will allow it to say to you, you should take a different road, take a different route. The current applications of this DSRC network are designed to do things such as to warn you that you're going off the road. That is, that you're veering into another lane or not staying on track. And it will automatically tell the car that it is going off the road. And then the system will tell the driver, hey, wake up, you're going off the road. And they're currently working on some of the ways of telling the driver, hey, wake up, you're going off the road. And the current view is it could be a sign in the windscreen, it could be a voice, but so far they found a vibrating seat as being the most effective way of warning people that they're driving off the road. This system, by the way, will be fully deployed by around 2010. So it's in the fairly sort of near stages of getting itself organized. First you and then you. Just hold 1 second.
Well, my question was, so are the auto manufacturers putting these onboard units in the cars? Is there a standard to that? Or
Not yet.
Expected to go out and buy our own?
No, they will be put into cars. Vehicle manufacturers will put them into cars, and they will become kind of standard equipment of cars in the United States, having these little radios that will be able to both transmit what the car is doing and where it is. It will have a GPS device attached to it, and that will give the traffic management people a way of knowing how many cars are on Stevens Creek Boulevard at any given time or on 280 on a particular link of 280 and how fast are they going. But it is not designed to identify any particular car. Now, you're asking yourself, why would the automobile manufacturers do this out of the goodness of their hearts, right? Some of you know the auto manufacturers. I know the auto manufacturers. They will also be able to transmit to their cars things such as all Buicks of a single make and model have been recalled. Go immediately to your dealer for a recall, or be able to broadcast messages to particular kinds of vehicles. So that's the inducement. It is advertising and it is connection with the customer that the automobile manufacturers mightily crave. Yes, you had a question.
So, having such a short range, how many sensors does it take to put on the road to make the system effective?
It's effective because it takes snapshots of different parts of the road. They can be about a mile apart and be fine in terms of giving information. Because you see, they operate with bursts of information. It's not a continuous stream of information.
Yeah, for the information transmitting, like recall information, that's fine. But for warning me off the road, what do you want between the sensors?
Oh, the sensors are supposed to be at places where there's a serious going off the road danger. And they haven't. It has not been fully deployed. This is a Japanese DSRC system that they want to use for everything in the world, to paying tolls, paying for your parking. I like this particular slide because it's so darn busy that it would drive me crazy if my car were doing all of these things simultaneously. But this is a map of where they think the sensors will be along the major interstate highways and some of the feeder roads. And you can see the little green nodes, which is where the signals will be. There'll be more of them in urban areas than in rural areas, but rural areas will have them sort of fairly widely spaced apart to tell you if there's snow coming or something like that for the rural areas, and in areas where people are likely to run off the road. There are other kinds of technologies that are used not just to count cars and see how fast they're going, but to designate particular cars and to find particular cars and drivers. And these are a little bit different from the transportation surveillance, which tends to be anonymous, that is, or is intended to be anonymous. The law enforcement surveillance are very particularized. Somebody had a question. Yeah. DSRC? Yeah.
It seems like that system, the driver is being pushed the information from the roadside units.
Is
Opposed to the driver is being pushed the information, so the
yes.
Unit. So when it comes to information like the weather, does the driver ever get a chance to select fully?
Yes. The drivers of cars can can subscribe to weather reports, they can subscribe to driving directions, and they are pushed at the car and pulsed really at the car, not in a continuous stream. But yes, there will be subscription services where you can choose to opt into certain kinds of services or not. Eventually, the thought is that these will also be attached to bank accounts and be, or credit card accounts, and be toll tags, operate the same as toll tags. But the interesting thing about it is that the information from the infrastructure is pushed into the car, but the car's information is also pushed at the infrastructure, in particular the sort of anonymous probe data. Now, we don't have time to talk about all of these law enforcement techniques, but I wanted to at least show you some of them. These are beepers. Now, what do they look like to you? Toll tags, right? They're not very different from toll tags. These are attached on the underside of the bumper of a car that the police want to follow. And they're called beepers because the closer the police is to the car, the higher the frequency of the beeping. And as the law enforcement begins to lose the car, then the frequency of the beeping goes down. They're very low-tech, 50s technology, very dumb technologies. They just simply emit a signal, and when the batteries run out, they stop signaling. The GPS devices, which are much preferred, are also put under a bumper. A Hunter Pro is one of my favorites. I mean, because you can buy these on the internet if you really want one, but I wouldn't advise it because using them, if you're not law enforcement, is a violation of California law. These are put under the bumpers of cars, and they don't beep. They keep a log of every place that car went, and then when they are removed from the bumper, then their hard drive is then downloaded, and it will follow a complete itinerary of where the car has been. This was used in the Scott Peterson case, and I'm told that part of the evidence that was most persuasive to the jury was his constantly going back to the Berkeley Marina. And the police knew that, not because they were following him, but because they had one of these devices. And one of the early rulings in the case that was hard on Scott Peterson was the legitimacy and the admissibility of the information from these little GPS tracking devices. They can also track you by your cell phone, if you know very much about that. One of my favorite cases has to do with a DEA agent who was having trouble tracking a drug dealer and just kept calling his cell phone and hanging up before it actually rang, and managed to locate him within a fairly small radius simply by doing that. There's also photo radar that some of you were talking about law enforcement uses. Now that is a traffic camera that is often mounted on a car, and if you have if you've received a photo radar ticket, they usually look something like that. Picture the car, the license plate, and the perp. And these are some photo radar centers. They look just like traffic cameras, but they tend to be hooked up to a patrol unit, which can then monitor them. This is a digital photo law enforcement in action, where the remote camera and photo radar takes a picture of the offending car and transmits that information into a computerized system that automatically writes and sends the ticket. Literally no person has touched or been involved in these exercises of law enforcement. So there are lots more of these to look at, but you guys have got classes to go to and things to do. If you'd like to talk about some of these technologies and some of the issues that we run into with them, my work is mostly on privacy, But as the privacy assessment of Traffic Watch showed, you have to really understand the technology or you aren't very much good in terms of helping with the privacy issues. So thanks for putting up with my slideshow.